So first of all, what is disciplined agile? Well, in 2009, Scott Embler, my co-creator, and somebody I've known for a very long time, was the worldwide lead of agile and lean methods for IBM worldwide. And so as the chief methodologist of agile, he was looking for a flavor of agile that was appropriate for, serious, complex, sophisticated situations. And he recognized that Scrum, as good as it is only described by a 19-page body of knowledge. It's a very small body of knowledge. It's very, very good, but it simply doesn't give us enough advice to be successful in like I say, these more complex situations. So he came up with the idea of a disciplined approach, an enterprise-aware approach, if you will, and called it disciplined agile delivery. And it was during that time at IBM that he asked for my advice to help him evolve it. And we worked together and we came out with our first book on disciplined agile delivery and what people call DAD in 2012. And as they say, the rest is history. That started our journey. In 2014, we expanded the scope of disciplined agile beyond DAD and delivering high performance teams to disciplined DevOps. So we layered in ideas for agile release management, agile security, agile data, agile operations, agile support, because we realized that in an enterprise, it's not good enough to deliver features or build features every day if you actually only deploy them once a quarter. Truly successful organizations should be able to deliver much more frequently than that. And we also need to recognize that not everybody is a startup, and developers can put their own software directly into production. Many of us, especially in situations like banks, regulatory environments, have some restrictions around how we can actually deploy what we build. And so we recognize this, but we still can be actually quite agile. So the guidance in disciplined agile helps us to be as agile as we possibly can be within non-optimal agile situations. So 2014, we delivered some guidance around DevOps. 2015, we expanded it to all of IT to include things like PMOs and program management, product management, portfolio management. And 2017, we expanded it to the enterprise. So disciplined agile for the enterprise includes guidance around agile marketing, agile finance, agile HR, what we call people operations, enterprise architecture, because we know that to be truly successful with agile, the whole organization needs to be agile, all the functional areas, not just IT. And in 2019, last August, we were acquired by PMI. Disciplined Agile was acquired, and we're now part of the PMI family. And absolutely thrilled to be part of PMI, and I'll explain why. 2020, what we've been doing is there is another acquisition that PMI made, which is Al Shalloway's Net Objectives. And Al has been working in the SAFe community for some time. If you're not familiar with SAFe, it's a scaled agile framework. It's the most popular agile solution for large scale situations where maybe you've got 100 or 200 developers working together to build a new insurance system, as an example. So SAFe breaks it up into small sets of teams called release trains, and typically delivers something every quarter. Anyway, that's SAFe. It's quite popular out there. But the target for SAFe is super large teams. And I would say to you that most organizations have a mixture of, yes, they might have a few super large initiatives where SAFe is appropriate, but they got lots of little and medium-sized situations and teams where maybe SAFe is not appropriate. But my point about SAFe is that Al Shalloway was the first, I believe it was the first gold partner for SAFe, trained SAFe, and realized that there's a lot of organizations kind of struggle with it. So he created his own material called Flex, where the FL in Flex stands for flow. And he helps his guidance helps safe implementations actually improve the flow so they could deliver value more consistently and more frequently. So PMI acquired Al and his company and Flex, and we're in the process of integrating his guidance to streamline agile at scale situations, combining his guidance with what is in the DA toolkit. So that's what's going on right now. And I'll tell you more about that. So definition of DA, it's a toolkit that provides straightforward guidance that enables us to make better decisions inside our organizations about our way of working. It's really important, folks, that you understand that disciplined agile is not another framework. It is not another method. We used to originally call it a process decision framework. But, and therefore, when people saw disciplined agile delivery, they said, well, if that's a framework and SAFe is a framework and Scrum is a method, then I need to pick one of those. So in many cases, they would pick SAFe as an example. And that's really a shame because we are not a method. Disciplined agile is a toolkit of strategies and practices, and those practices can be plugged into whatever method you use. So we stopped using the term framework and started referring to it as a toolkit, because that really is what it is. And so in the world of Agile, the Agile Manifesto was written in 2001, so it's 20 years old. And beyond the Agile Manifesto, which anybody who uses Agile believes in the principles and the mindset of Agile, but beyond that, different methodologists, different thought leaders have different approaches to how it's actually implemented. And over the years, there's been literally hundreds of practices from these different methods that people can draw from to be successful, to supplement their Scrum implementations, as an example. But the problem is, it's really, really hard for people typically to understand all those practices, to learn about them all. And to understand about them all, they typically have to have, many certifications and read many books and go to many classes and trainings to get an understanding of the complete Agile landscape. Well, this is what Scott and I have done when we created the DA Toolkit. Is we read the 100 books. We've been doing Agile. Each of us have been doing Agile for over 25 years. And so we know a lot of this stuff anyway, just from our experience and our reading. We decided, well, what we need to do is pull that together into a comprehensive catalog, if you will, so it's easy for people to learn these things quicker and apply these techniques on your Agile projects. So this is why we think of Disciplined Agile as an umbrella over all the Agile methods and frameworks. And if you learn all these practices and you can learn them from one place, you can then be more effective regardless of what approach you're using. And that's the fundamental message of this presentation, is that the toolkit can help you get better. There really is nothing else out there like it. Nobody else has done this, and that's what the toolkit's all about. So let me take you to tell you more about it. We like to describe the mindset of Disciplined Agile in these ways. We've got principles, we've got promises, and we've got guidelines. And I'm going to take you through each of these, but we don't have time. I could spend an hour just talking about this one slide. So I'm just going to cherry pick some of my favorites. And in the principles, my favorite is the one right at the top: delight our customers. That's what it's all about. It begins at a customer, it ends at a customer. Everything we do is for customers. And we don't want just satisfied customers. We want delighted customers. And we can do that if we apply Agile principles properly. So supplementing this idea of delighting customers are these other principles. And one of them is to be awesome. And being awesome means that if the team is free to improve their own way of working within enterprise constraints, this is part of the discipline in Disciplined Agile, is we recognize that for most situations, we're not talking about one Scrum team of 6 people. There are going to be sets of teams and in different product lines, and we might have some enterprise architecture guidelines, and we might have a bit of governance in place. We might have a way that we get funding. This is the reality of organizations, and this is part of the discipline in Disciplined Agile, is we need to recognize we work within a larger ecosystem, And how can we make that ecosystem effective so that the agile teams can realize their potential? And properly done, where you have disciplined agile teams with the freedom to use the way of working that makes sense for them, with an agile organization, this creates huge value. It streamlines throughput, it improves quality, it reduces risk, and most importantly, it improves morale. Everybody is happier. It creates joy. And this is why I'm so passionate about this, is because I've seen this over the years, where every time we work with an organization, by the time we leave, everybody's happier, everybody's producing better quality work, and happier people, more awesome people, better results. And by the way, it's not just the IT teams. The PMOs are happier because they're working in an agile way. The architecture folks are happier because they're working in an agile way. Same thing with release management and all the other areas of the organization, including HR, by the way, human resources or people management, whatever you call it. So that's being awesome. And another principle of DA is that context counts. Many agile methods try to tell you that there's only one way of working. You know, if you're doing Scrum and you're not doing retrospectives, then that's wrong, and you're not doing Scrum and you're not doing Agile. And that's a shame, because I've seen lean teams that work together every day and improve the process every day without having to have a formal ceremony every 2 weeks to do a retrospective. And don't get me wrong, retrospectives are wonderful and applicable in many, if not most situations, but context counts. So we need to have the freedom to decide which elements of Agile make sense for us. So context counts. The way that you do Agile in a simple project, such as building a website, where the risk is low, if something doesn't go right, easy to fix. The way you do Agile in that kind of situation is going to be different than if you're writing software for a banking system or medical devices where people's lives are on the line. Your way of doing Agile is going to be much more rigorous and, frankly, in many ways, not particularly Agile than in the website design example. So recognizing this and learning how to apply, customize your Agile for the different contexts is important. And choice is good. That means that we don't just have a Scrum approach. Scrum is fundamental to disciplined Agile, but it's just one of many approaches within disciplined Agile. And our new certification program, yes, we have Scrum Masters and we have Senior Scrum Masters, but underneath the covers, that's just a role. And underneath the covers, you could use Scrum, you could use Lean, you could use hybrid, many different approaches, Lean startup kind of approaches. So choice is good, and that's a good thing. So I'm going to move on and talk about some of the promises. We promise to create psychological safety and embrace diversity. Diversity makes us stronger, and psychological safety, the freedom to make mistakes as we learn without being judged, is an important part of becoming successful. Yeah, and I'll jump down to one: make all work and workflow visible. You know, classic Agile thinking, no hidden work. Get your work up on a workboard somewhere, whether it's a manual board with sticky notes or a virtual board. Regardless, make sure that all your work is visible and improve your predictability. These are promises that we make. And then the guidelines we'd like to follow, I'll pick the fourth one here: create effective environments that foster joy. And I talked about joy and how joy leads to awesomeness. And excuse me, a manager's job these days is more about leading than it is about management. And a good manager creates the environment that allows for self-organization and joy and productive teams. And what we say is that, don't try to change the people, change the system. In many, if not most cases, good people are stuck in a bad system. So change the system, and that will lead to all these other good things. So the scope of disciplined Agile, at its base layer, you see I just took you through the principles, promises, and guidelines. We also have fundamental guidance around Agile approaches, Lean approaches. Yes, there might be some serial things, some sort of waterfallish ideas that might make sense in certain situations. So we don't ignore all that stuff, because you may want to do a Gantt chart as an example. So choice is good. And then we talk about roles, teams, and ways of working. So that foundational layer is important regardless of whether you're an IT team or a marketing team. And we build on that. The next layer, I'm building out what we call a square onion. It kind of looks like an onion, it's square, and it's got layers. And the foundational layer for IT is discipline DevOps. And what these hexes that you see here are what we call process blades. And they're not, please understand, this is not an organizational structure. This is just a placeholder for the content. So you double click on these and you will learn content around discipline agile delivery, agile security, agile data management, etc. So discipline agile delivery, as I said, that's where it all started in 2012 with our first book, and it's about producing high performance teams. What we think of them as engines, and that's why the icon is an engine here. But we recognize that we also need to get good at these other areas for true enterprise DevOps. And your DevOps is a continuum. You could have a very regulated situation where you will have a formal release management group to control how you get things into production. Or at the other end of the continuum, you might have an Amazon-like situation where developers can put their own stuff into production directly. So then you don't have formal release management. So this is the flexibility of disciplined agile, is that we say the way you do DevOps depends on your context, and we provide guidance to help you customize. The next layer is the value stream. So IT is fundamental to pretty much any organization out there. This really is the competitive advantage. When you think of a company like Uber, is their competitive advantage driving people around in cars, or is it their IT? I would suggest it's their IT. If you look at a UPS or a FedEx courier, is it the planes and trucks delivering packages that's their competitive advantage, or is it their logistics and their ITs to support it? So you get the idea. Increasingly, IT is critical to be competitive. But there is an entire value stream. So the experience starts. I sometimes tell the story of Papa John's Pizza. They use disciplined agile, and I help them implement it. And I describe the value chain as being the moment when I order a pizza, and then that order goes to some franchise, and they make the pizza, and they have a system for that, and then they have a system for a driver to drive the pizza to my house. And there's somewhere in there's a payment. You might have started the mobile app at the beginning of the experience, or may happen when they show up at my door, and I pay for it there. So, and then there's a system to track the driver, etc. So this is what a value stream is. It's more than just IT. We have guidance here in each of these process blades to help us be agile in the different areas that support that value stream. And then at the highest level, we have things like people management. So you can think of that as human resources, agile finance, agile vendor management. And when I say we, I mean PMI now, because DA is part of the PMI team. So DA has guidance for most of these things, but to be honest and upfront with you, there are some of these process blades that we don't have guidance for yet. One of the examples is legal. We don't have any guidance yet about agile legal. So what we will be doing, everyone, in the next year or two, is working with other organizations that specialize in agile marketing, agile HR, etc. And working together in partnership, we'll come out with the guidance and micro certifications, so that if you wanted to become an expert in agile marketing, you would take the foundational layer guidance and then maybe add a day or two of training to learn about agile marketing, and then take a test and get a micro certification, maybe as an agile marketing specialist. So this is where we're going with discipline agile over time. That's the scope. So how can DA help us? The three value propositions, and the first and most important is that with the DA toolkit, you can better optimize your agile teams. And this is very simple, folks. The idea here is that, and one of the reasons we're so excited to be part of PMI is that PMI has always been respected for world-class guidance for traditional project management, a career path with a set of certifications, a place where you can spend your career and continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to network with your peers. And data shows that a PMP, project management professional, gets better job opportunities, better compensation than those who don't have the credential, because it is a serious, comprehensive body of knowledge, a difficult test, and you need thousands of hours of experience. While on the disciplined agile side, we're building the equivalent so that people actually have a lifelong agile journey and they can continue to grow. And we are going to build and promote the disciplined agile certifications so that employers know that those who invest in learning DA are better equipped to get the job done for material significant initiatives. Better skilled teams yield better results. And a typical agile certification is not very rigorous. It might have a very small body of knowledge. There may be a guaranteed to pass test, no requirement for experience, and then you're called some kind of agile master. It doesn't do the business any favors that way. So we are building, and we have this rigorous agile certification program now. So it makes, and I'm going to explain more about that a little bit later in the presentation, why it's so important to have better skilled teams. Better skilled teams yield better results. You can think of the Disciplined Agile program, specifically the Senior Scrum Master certification, as the PMP equivalent of Agile. And so that's the way to think about this. Number two, so we sometimes talk about Agile methods and frameworks give you a fish. So if you learn one method, you learn how to fish, they feed you for a day. With the DA toolkit, because we teach you to choose your way of working and a much larger set of practices to draw from, you can customize your own way of working. It's like teaching you how to fish, thus feeding you for life. The second value proposition is that we extend agility beyond IT to the entire organization. And that's what the square onion message was all about. Agility, that's true business agility across the organization, not just IT. And then finally, the DA toolkit using DA Flex allows us to optimize situations where we use, as we say here, accelerate value delivery in scaled agile situations. So if you're using SAFe, you can use the DA toolkit to help you get better at SAFe. Example of a case study here, Barclays has been doing Disciplined Agile for many years. They have over 1,200 teams at last count, not people, teams. So it's being used around the world. I've traveled around the world to visit some of the Barclays teams. Many of them don't self-identify as doing Disciplined Agile. They may self-identify as doing Scrum or SAFe or less or Lean, and that's fine. But behind the scenes, the techniques that they're using, they're drawing from the DA toolkit. And so they're not a DA shop. They're not any shop. They use a variety of approaches, but there's some stuff inside the DA toolkit that they use to supplement whatever they're using. An example is they have architecture owners, which is, think of them as like a technical lead on every team to ensure that all the teams are aware of enterprise architecture related guidance for the bank so that they minimize their technical debt, minimize their technical risks, and are kind of on the same page, if you will, in their technical approaches to how they deliver things. A very, very important role within DA. It's unique, the architecture owner role, and very popular. And Barclays has been using that as an example from the toolkit. So I'm going to take a deeper dive now into an aspect of Disciplined Agile, the Disciplined Agile delivery part. And just to move along here, for us, for DA, it's more than just working software. It's solutions. It's consumable solutions that people actually want to use. Let's take a double click on the Disciplined Agile process plate here. And I'm going to show you that it supports many life cycles, many approaches. We have the Agile life cycle, which is based upon Scrum. It's not called the Scrum lifecycle because it's more than Scrum. It's maybe some extreme programming, technical practices, some agile modeling, some agile data. But the thing that's common about the agile approach is that it has iterations, or what Scrum calls sprints. So it's time-boxed approach. Every sprint is a mini project. That's what the agile approach is. Whereas the lean approach does not have iterations. It's more about flow, a continuous flow of value to the business. So it's good to have a choice. And the exploratory approach is kind of like the lean startup, if you've heard of that, where we want to invest a small amount in an approach, test it with the market to make sure that that's what the market really needs. We explore the market before we commit to the larger project. It's based on lean startup. Very good for startup kind of situations or a brand new application. The ones at the bottom are continuous delivery flavors, and the one on the bottom right program is for large scale situations. But the continuous delivery versions are, I'll return to the top ones for a second. The agile and the lean lifecycle, you can think of them as project-based approaches rather than product. That is to say, if you had a brand new, maybe you've got an initiative to replatform an insurance application, and you're not going to have something that first of all, you want to think about how long this is going to take. Roughly how much is this going to cost? And what are my key risks and things? So in this kind of a project-based approach, I maybe want to spend a bit more time up front planning and doing quote unquote requirements before committing to the project than you would normally do in an agile-based approach. So it's not pure agile, it's more of a pragmatic approach. And so we do a little bit more work up front and kind of estimate approximately how long it's going to take. And then we're not going to have something to deliver after 2 weeks, are we? We won't have enough functionality. So we go through a number of iterations or sprints, and then we deploy it out to the business. That's a project-based approach using Scrum, and we call that the Agile lifecycle. Contrast that to the continuous delivery Agile, which is more of a product-based approach. So there's a lot of people out there saying from project to product, and I get it. I'll plug Mick Kirstein's book, From Project to Product. Very good. You absolutely want to use a product approach when you can, but DA is pragmatic. So there's still always going to be a place for projects, and it's nice to be able to do both. So the continuous delivery is more product-based approach where you actually deploy every sprint. And that's sometimes the continuous delivery approach follows the agile approach. So I replatform that insurance system over 6 months. Then after that, I switch to the continuous delivery agile, and every 2 weeks, I implement another feature or maybe some production fixes. So you can move between these life cycles. It's beautiful to have this choice. Double clicking on the agile life cycle, this is what it looks like. And if you know Scrum, you'll recognize the bit in the middle. It's Scrum. But remember, this is more of a pragmatic, disciplined approach for larger initiatives, which maybe takes 6 months, that whole story I told you for the insurance application. So we do have a phase for this to do some planning up front. Maybe you do a bit more requirements and a bit more time estimating and planning than you would typically do on an agile project. So we have a phase for that, and we call it inception. And underneath each of these phases, we have milestones. So governance is baked right into disciplined agile. So lean governance is not traditional governance, it's lean, but you don't have to figure out governance yourself. It's there for you to use, and you can customize it. It's like a starter set of governance. Governance does not need to be bureaucratic. Governance might be simply placeholders at the end of a sprint to have a discussion about the health of the project. Doesn't need to be a big deal. Could be at the same time as you're having a sprint review, sprint demo. Oh, and by the way, we're at a milestone. Let's talk about our funding. Okay, so this is baked into it. These phases, inception, construction, and transition, you really should understand they're optional. Sometimes people look at this and they see the phases and they go, oh, this can't be agile. It doesn't look agile at all. Well, we don't want you to have these phases. If you don't need them, don't use them. If you're in a continuous delivery life cycle, then don't use these phases. But so we're pragmatic. It's there if you need it. If you don't need it, don't use it. So very flexible. This is the lean approach, also the project-based approach, but the difference is I don't have sprints. I don't have these time boxes. And maybe I order my work in different ways rather than an ordered backlog that you would use in Scrum. Maybe I have pools of different prioritization of the items, prioritization by business value, stuff that has to be done by a fixed delivery date, things that should be expedited, like production issues, and you pool them as you have the capacity to deliver it. And in this case, you deliver it maybe at the end over a 3-month project, a project-based approach. But please, if you can get away with doing it every day or more frequently, do that. And we have the continuous delivery lean cycle for that. Lean, using a lean approach, but this is the Amazon model where maybe I build, deliver, potentially many times a day. So choice is good. We have different life cycles. And I'm going to skip this slide. Essentially, I've talked about this already. Lean governance is there if you want to use it. Most companies do, specifically in finance. Insurance companies, banks love this. And they layer in, maybe they layer in additional milestones, like a security milestone. Maybe there's a security review milestone early in the project to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities in this architecture of whatever we're building. So you can customize this. Now, in disciplined agile delivery, the guidance, Mark talks about all this guidance, all these practices, how are they organized? Well, we group them into the different phases. Again, you may not have the phases, but it's a grouping mechanism. And I would suggest to you, if you're starting a new project, new product, you're going to need to form a team. And so you have decisions to make, choices to make. And you might ask yourself, how big are the team? How is the team? How many of them do we need? Are they full-time or shared between projects? Of course, that's not a good idea, but it happens. Are they full-time employees? Are they consultants? Are they co-located? Are they distributed? Are they in different countries? You get the idea. There are decisions to make. And what we say inside the toolkit is the advantages and disadvantages of the different choices. For instance, outsourcing north-south is typically better than east-west because then everybody can be virtually in the same meetings because they're in the same time zone. These are the things that people don't even think about, but we talk about them in the toolkit so you can make better decisions. I'm going to take a look at one in particular, explore scope. Agile teaches us about user stories, which are wonderful. A few sentences about what we're building and how we need to test it. That's a user story. And that will work just fine in simple situations. But in more complex situations, we clearly need more than a few sentences to describe the scope of what we're building. So what we show here is the most popular modeling diagrammatic and textual techniques, practices. And we group them into different types of models. And then you can pick ones that make sense that you can use to supplement your user stories. The ones that are bolded say that if you're going to pick one from a particular category, those are good default choices. The ones that have arrows beside them are ordered lists, which means that the ones at the top are typically better than the ones at the bottom. So this helps us supplement our user stories and pick practices to help make sure that what we deliver meets our customers' expectations, delighting the customers, right? So an example of one, explore usage. You'll see a table like this in the Choose Your Wow book, by the way. This is the body of knowledge, the Choose Your Wow book. It's 400 pages. And the reason it's 400 pages is because it's full of tables that define these practices, where to find out more information about them, and where they're likely to help you. This is how you get really effective with Agile. And this is essentially, this Choose Your Wow book is a rewrite of our first book on disciplined agile delivery. So personas, as an example, might be a way that you can build better user experiences and supplement your user stories with them. Okay, so that's how the content is organized. Let's talk about producing value. Really important, everyone, that one of the key messages here is that you don't win. You don't become really competitive by copying somebody else's method and implementing it and then saying that you're done. So using Scrum is amazing. If you're new to Agile, do it. If you're in a scaling situation with hundreds of developers, SAFe can be a very effective way for you to organize your work and deliver it, usually once a quarter. But I would suggest to you that's a beginning, that's not an end. Truly successful companies recognize they need to take responsibility for evolving their own agility. I often tell the story about Spotify. A lot of people say we use the Spotify model, and they copy what Spotify did. But Spotify is a Swedish music company. Unless you're a Swedish music company, that's not the Agile for you. Now, it can be an accelerator. And what I mean by that is if you copy what they're doing and then recognize, now I need to customize it, that's okay. That's choosing a way of working. But Spotify has moved on. Like 7 years ago is when they started talking about what they're doing. You talk to anybody at Spotify now, they're doing things completely differently. And that's great. The brilliance of Spotify is not what they do or did. It's that they learned to choose their way of working. And they had a world-class coach, Henrik Nyberg, to help them with that. But we don't all have world-class coaches to help us do it. And you don't have to. For mere mortals, you can learn about the toolkit and you can become a Spotify yourself. Okay, so let's talk about process improvement. A typical process improvement in Agile is, it might be done through a retrospective, as we identify problems in our performance, we identify potential techniques to improve. That's called a process experiment. We try it, we assess how effective it is, we adopt what works, we abandon what doesn't, we share our learnings, and we go round and round. This is what's called a Kaizen improvement loop. Very good. But you know what? A lot of times the things that we try fail, and that we learn, but it's still a failure. And learning yourself can be time-consuming, expensive. This idea of failing fast is great. Fail early, learn, get better. But what if we had fewer failed process experiments? And that's just what we're saying here, is if we can get better at finding solutions that are similar for my context, I'll fail less. And you can do that if you have an experienced coach, but they're expensive and hard to find. If the whole team invests in taking a course on what's in the toolkit, you're going to have far better retrospectives. You'll get better results. You'll have fewer failed experiments. And we call this, the bottom right here, not just continuous improvement, but guided continuous improvement, GCI, referencing the toolkit. So if you're adopting a method, it's typical for you to improve, but then kind of level off your performance as you exhaust all the guidance from that particular framework. And if you use continuous improvement, a Kaizen loop, yes, you'll continue to improve. But what is really great is if you refer to proven strategies, you will accelerate your learning journey. You'll get better faster. This is how you win. This is how you beat your competition. You know, when I talk to organizations about who they fear or who they respect, it is the FANG companies, the Facebooks, Amazon, Netflix, Googles, the Spotify's. And those companies, if you go inside them, are not using a canned method or framework. They're figuring it out for themselves. And they often have access to really high-priced consultants. And I'm saying that if you can do this yourself, you just need to invest in some education. And a great message about DA is it's not disruptive. You don't have to stop what you're currently doing. If you're doing Scrum, great. But you know what? There's some really great ideas for evolving away from Scrum to a more lean approach, if that makes sense. If you're happy with Scrum, stay with Scrum. But you should have the freedom to evolve to a more continuous delivery lean approach. And you can do that over time, but it's not disruptive. You don't have to throw out what you've done in the past. Start where you are, do the best that you can in your situation, and always strive to get better. So what's happening in the future? We just launched the new PMI certification program. And we did a lot of research into what the market needs. Remember I said earlier that we are building a place where you can go at PMI and have a career learning journey in Agile, a place to go, a place to learn more, a place to get paid better and get better credit for your knowledge and experience. And this is what we have here. The ACP on the left-hand side is PMI's existing Agile certification, which is very good. And we're not doing anything with it. There's 35,000 certificate holders out there, but we needed something more. And the ACP doesn't talk about the DA toolkit. So if you're in an ACP, you've got a place to go further. And if you're brand new at Agile, you can take your ACP, or you could decide, you know, I'm going to learn about a Scrum and Lean and the DA toolkit and take the brand new Disciplined Agile Scrum Master class. I've reviewed the materials and it's brilliant. It's got videos, games. It's built for virtual delivery, and this we think is a world-class Scrum certification because it's far more than Scrum, and it teaches you how to adapt and evolve your way of working. So that's the DA Scrum Master. The Senior Scrum Master it takes you to the next step. You build a deeper understanding of the toolkit. You learn more about leadership. You learn how to coordinate between multiple Scrum teams. You learn about how to go into different areas of the business to help them become agile as well. That's our Senior Scrum Master. And then we have a coach, and we have which is an enterprise coach. It's not a team coach. It's really about true enterprise agility. And then the value stream consultant. So the purple ones are the advanced certifications. The value stream consultant is using Al Shalloway's Flex to improve safe implementations. So we have this complete journey here. And the last thing I'll say about this is, those of you who have followed Disciplined Agile over the years know that we've always been agnostic, and we haven't typically used Scrum terminology. We call a sprint an iteration. We call a Scrum a daily stand-up, a daily coordination meeting. And we call a Scrum Master a team lead. And the reason is because if you're a lean team, you don't have Scrum Masters, but you always have leaders within the team. So why do we call this a Scrum Master cert? And the reason is we need to differentiate between the knowledge in the toolkit and what you learn and what helps you be successful in the marketplace. And our research with hiring managers told us that hiring managers are looking for Scrum Masters because they think of Scrum as agile. And they're looking for people who have gone beyond their CSM, the Certified Scrum Master, and they're looking for people who've been doing this for years, for really, really critical projects using Agile. They don't just want a CSM. They want a Senior Scrum Master. And this is why we created the certifications like this. And I just saw one actually for a job in Calgary. They were looking for a Senior Scrum Master. So it's brilliant. If you're a certified Senior Scrum Master, much better chance you're going to get that job, especially when the world starts to understand the value of this toolkit. They're going to be looking for specific types of Scrum Masters, those that understand all the practices. So check out the new DA Senior Scrum Master certification. And the other two, the purple ones, aren't going to be available till first quarter of 2021. So just wrapping up here, we'll be taking questions in a couple of minutes. And as I mentioned, not all the process blades in here at the top are fully fleshed out yet. We're going to be working with other organizations, partnering with them to build out the guidance and micro certifications in these other areas. What are we doing for time? Pretty good. This is a peek at what we're doing with Flex. We're combining Al Shalloway's guidance for flow, accelerating value delivery in safe, scaled agile implementations. We're combining his guidance with the techniques and the practices from the DA toolkit. And it's about flowing. It starts at the customer and ends at the customer. It's not top-down portfolio program and teams. To be truly effective, you need to flow through value streams, which is, you know, a slightly different approach than what you may have heard of. So that and that previous slide will be supported by the value stream consultant certification. It really is an advanced certification. So in summary, success doesn't come from adopting a prescriptive framework or methodology such as Scrum or SAFe, but it can be a great place to start. Okay, think of that as a starter recipe, if you will. For true business agility, we need to choose our own agile way of working, optimizing for our unique situation. Disciplined Agile is a rich, comprehensive, and well-organized toolkit of strategies to help your organization be more successful with Agile. It brings a disciplined, agnostic, professional enterprise approach to Agile, which is really what our industry has been lacking in the past, that cohesive approach. And understanding what your options are and which ones work in different contexts, it leads to better decisions, better outcomes. This is fundamentally obvious for us, that investing in the landscape of Agile practices and which ones make sense in different contexts, understanding how to apply them and to customize your way of working, that's how you win, folks. This is how you win compared to somebody else who's following a prescribed approach. So for more information, lots of things here. I think you'll be provided with a copy of this presentation. But if you're looking for training, just Google Disciplined Agile Training. Of course, in this COVID times, it's all being delivered virtually, but the good news is all the classes have been designed for that. So, so just check into it. So that's it. Thank you very much. I am on Twitter if you're interested in following me, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mark. I'm replacing Ricardo. I'm
Okay.
Clever Lacunha. We have some questions from the audience. Let's start with this one. What is the fundamental difference between the discipline agile with other frameworks? Can you point out 3 elements that make them the discipline agile a little better or suits a better approach?
Sure. So I tried to explain that during the presentation. Let me just explain it maybe in a different way. A method or a framework, in often cases, prescribes a certain way of working. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Scrum for a second. Scrum is amazing. So don't take my comments as criticism of Scrum. It's beautiful, but it's a very small kernel of process. But Scrum says, we will have a backlog of work. We will have a sprint planning session. We will have a demonstration and a review, a retrospective. And typically we will work in 2-week time boxes. So these are things that Scrum tells you to do to make Scrum work. Well, what if I don't want to have time boxes? Maybe what if I want to do my process improvement every day instead of at the end of every 2 weeks? So our point is that that's not what the DA toolkit is. Yes, we do have that flavor, that Scrum flavor, but we also have different flavors. So the difference is, think of us as a food analogy. A recipe might be Scrum, and you could think of that as macaroni and cheese or a basic taco. But what the Disciplined Agile toolkit is a pantry of ingredients that you can make better tacos with, or better macaroni and cheese, or make something completely different. So think of us as the ingredients versus a recipe.
Okay.
Now we do come with a few recipes out of the box. Like we have a Scrum recipe, we have a Lean recipe, but then we want you to customize it after that.
Okay, that's really nice. So we have another one. We all know that the majority of the companies works with hybrid models, like with waterfall programs and agile. How can Discipline Agile help this company? Can you share some tips? Let's remain to 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the last speaking engagements I did before the COVID crisis hit us was in Dubai at the Project Management International Forum. And my topic was hybrid agile. And I made a point similar to what I said today, is that you can use a product-based approach or you can use a project-based approach. And the project-based approaches are essentially a hybrid approach. You do a little bit more planning, a little bit more estimating before you roll into more of an agile approach. So Disciplined Agile absolutely works really well in hybrid situations.
Good. That's really nice. So for an organization to adopt Discipline Agile, what would be your recommendations? Where to start? I saw you share just a slide with the information so they get started. But in terms of behaviors and things to consider at the organization perspective, where to start?
Great question. And so there are a couple of things. One thing is you're going to need some executive buy-in to why I would want to learn and apply disciplined agile on my teams. So how do you do that? There are two recommendations I have for you. One is Scott and I wrote a book called The Executive Guide to Disciplined Agile. Smaller book, 200 pages, but it's very good for executives to understand what DA is all about. So that's one thing. You can get it on Amazon. Simpler is go to pmi.org and look for success stories. It's under the resources menu, I believe. Success stories. And there are some video testimonials from CIOs from a few companies that have seen disciplined agile greatly improve their company. So executives like to hear stories from other executives. Listen to those two. There's two specifically. One from Mike Nettles from Papa John's and Panera Bread, and the second one is from Gary Eastwood from the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia. So DA works very well in government, by the way, and insurance and banking and all those kinds of things. So listen to those testimonials, and then get some training, and coaching. Ideally, there are lots of disciplined agile coaches out there, and you can find them at the disciplinedagileconsortium.org, disciplinedagileconsortium.org. Look at the membership directory. You can find coaches and get them to help you with training, consulting, whatever you need.
Oh, that's great. This one is my question, my personal question. Have you ever been in a situation that you just jumping in an organization trying to transform, and they always have the all agile playbooks, the practices out there, the frameworks, it's running from a certain time, and you saw it and say, okay, this is not working. Do you ever been in this kind of situation, and how is Plan Agile help you to recover recover this transformational effort, so put them in the right track? Have you ever been in this situation before?
Absolutely. And the executive guide will tell you a bit about that. There's a whole chapter written on transformations, and then the other related chapter is how to use a community of excellence and a community of practice, the difference between the two, and how to apply them. So that's one thing. The second thing is take a look at the new value stream consultant certification coming out. Whether you get certified or not is not the issue. Get the training. So look at the training, and you will see how it has diagnostics built into it, where you can go in and assess where the problems are with whatever method or framework that you're using, and then pull in the practice to fix that problem. It's a beautiful technique. So I recommend you look into the value stream consultant for how to do that. And then, the executive guide talks about this, but I've been into companies where the first thing I do is talk to the executive and say, where does it hurt? You're trying to do Agile, where does it hurt? And I think of this company that was doing Scrum, but they were going through the motions. They were doing all the ceremonies. From the outside, it looked like they were doing Scrum great, but you know what? They were not getting predictable results. They were just classic project problems of spending twice as much money, not getting the value, unhappy stakeholders. So following a method doesn't equal positive outcomes. So you can use these diagnostics and what I've done in a company like this is figured out, focus more on the value and the throughput than actually following the particular ceremonies, and it's led to improvements. So you can see all these ideas in the toolkit.
Okay, so thank you once again for your presentation. It was brilliant to have you here. It was a great experience. Can you do you want to share where we can buy the executive guide? I think that there is a lot a lot of knowledge there that we must search.
Let me see if I've got it on my bookshelf. Yeah, this is what it looks like. It's got a race car in the front. Because you got to win the race, you've got to have a pit crew that can actually help you. And the pit crew is your DevOps team and your PMOs and all that kind of stuff, enterprise architecture. So you can find this on Amazon. And by the way, some of our books are actually in Spanish, and more translations are coming. All the courses are being translated into Portuguese, Spanish, just so you know. So watch out for that. They should be available by the end of the year. I should have mentioned that.
That's really nice. I limited my book backlog to 100 title, and I'm actually 99 in the number 99.
Wow.
So I think there is space to buy this book and put my backlog. I
There
really
you go.
Thank you so much for your time. That was a great experience.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Good luck, and most importantly, be safe. Take care.